Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So today I'm going to be tying for you a kind of my variation on a gold ribbed hare's ear. If there was one material that I would want and only one material that I would have to tie a fly with, it would be a hare's mask. And this little fly here, just plain catches fish. So I'm starting out with a Timco 5262. This is in a size 14. And I tend to size the lead on there per the fly that I do. So like on a size 12, I'll put 025. On 14, I'll do 020, 16, 015. And then on an 18, I'll do 010. So I'll start this, I'll get about 10, so that's 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 wraps of lead. And this is also with a gold tungsten bead, so I guess it's you don't have to have the bead if you don't want the bead. I do tie them without sometimes. If I'm in, a little bit more of a shallow, more finicky fish kind of water, I'll throw one without a bead so it's not as much of a plop on the water. So I'll start my thread right behind that lead, and just like I did with my woolly booger, I'm not going to build my dam just yet. I'm going to use the materials that I tie on to kind of build that dam for me, and then I'll finish it off. Now when it comes to the tail, so I've got my hare's mask here. The tail I'm going to tie is going to be from this area. So I'm trying to get that hair that's got that brown and that black on it all in one. And I'll find myself just a little section of it. You can make it as bushy as you want or as light as you want. But I tend to keep mine about round in the middle. Now when you trim your hair, it'll come with all this fuzz down at the bottom. You're going to want to pull all that out and just have those guard hairs present. So just those. This tail's a little light, so I'm going to start over. Pulled a little too much out when I was showing you guys how to get that fluff out from the bottom. So let's try again. So I've got all the hairs that I want. I'll grab by the tips and I'll pull all that fluff out from the bottom. We don't want to tie that in, it'll just be a big bump at the back. I try to make sure I don't have any extremely long guard hairs. So I'll just kind of pull those out from the front. Just barely grab them by the tip, give it a little pull. Now from there I'm gonna size my tail almost as long as the shank in and of itself. So not the full hook length, but just that shank. Now if you saw that there, as I wrap, that thread torque wants to take that material over the hook. What you can do is you can use your index finger to keep that material on top. So I'm just going to keep it pushed on top. And the friction on from your thread base and the material in and of itself will keep it centered. Now as I was saying, with that thread dam, I'm going to trim this hair right up next to that lead so that the hair in and of itself, the materials in and of itself build a little dam, little thread dam. So I'm going to pull up, see if I can get you guys to see it. Slide my scissors in and give it a little trim. And from there I can finish getting my materials tied down, and that builds that little bit of a dam where I want it. Now since I'm already up here, I'm going to go ahead and grab my sulky tinsel. Now you can tie this with a lead wire if you want. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I really like this sulky tinsel, so that's what I'm going to use today. Now from here I'm going to go ahead and start building that taper. So I'll come back up, come down, then back up with my thread, just my working thread here. And then I'll go ahead and jump onto that lead. If that lead wants to give you a little issue, just squeeze it and turn it. And make a jump up. Now most of this lead will be covered up by the dubbing, but I want to try and hide some of it. And for me, one thing that I always try to do is leave a little bit in the front, like a little bit of room in the front, right up in this section. That way, whenever I'm tying off and I'm tying my knot and all that good fun stuff, my whip finish, I don't bulk too much behind that bead to where it's wanting to slide off and whatnot. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Hare's mask, but I'm going to come up here next to the ears, and I'm going to try and get that light color. That's what I'm shooting for. And you can see I've tied a few flies off of this, but I'm going to shoot for that light color for the thorax, or excuse me, for the abdomen. So I'm just going to take my fingers, grab and pick out that hair. I'm just going to dub it on nice and light. Just like with all dubbing, it's much easier to put on more than it is to take off, so I always do a thin dubbing noodle. And the thing with rabbit, it really dubs down tight, so you don't really have to work too hard. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and start my body. Need a little bit more, so I'll go back to the Hare's mask, pull some off, finish up this little bit of a abdomen here, and I stop short because the rest of it's going to be tied in a moment. Then from here, I'll go ahead and start my rib. You want just nice open spirals. You don't need a whole lot, maybe 4, maybe 5 kind of deal. You don't need many. And really, I just want a little hint of segmentation there. Now for the wing cover, I'm using one of my buddies who went and got a turkey. I'm using one of his turkey wings. I'm going to try and get one that's a little bit wider than you would kind of think. So if you take a look here, if I try to measure it up against the gap of the hook, it's wider than the gap of the hook. Now you can tell with turkey, you have these thicker ends, and then towards the tips, they're real thin. So we're going to shoot for somewhere in that middle ground, because those thicker ends won't fold as easy and they'll give you all kinds of fits. So I'm going to shoot more towards the tips. Now tips are going to go towards the bead, and I'm going to kind of use my thumb here to bend that turkey feather around that hook so that when I tie down, that turkey feather will envelop the hook, envelop around that fly. I'm also using my fingers to kind of help out with that. Now one thing I like to do is I like to come up and I can twist that feather and then come in with my scissors nice and close and trim off, and it gets all of them in one go. Now don't worry about that little bit of a reverse taper, as you can see, because I can use the dubbing to make up for that. Now when it comes to the thorax, I'm going to go back to my Hare's mask, and I'm going to use this darker stuff. So right in there is what I'm going to go for. And you can tell with this, I've tied 1 or 2 flies off of it, so that hair is getting a little finicky to find, but I've got a nice big section right there that I can pull from. I'm just going to use the same technique, just go in and pull that hair from the hide, comes out looking like that, and just build myself another little dubbing loop. Or excuse me, not dubbing loop, but another dubbing noodle. And from there, I'm going to start up here right behind the eyes. You can tell I didn't go, excuse me, right behind the bead. I didn't go directly behind the bead because that's where my knot needs to seat. So I'm going to start a couple of wraps back from that. Go ahead and start building my thorax. And from there, as I end, I'll kick my thread back up to the front. Take my wing case. I'll pull it over and I'll kind of give it a little bit of a wiggle. That way it envelops that fly. I'll tie it down with 1 tight wrap, 2, 3, and then I like to pull everything back so I get back behind that bead. And I'll kind of fill that gap just a little bit. Then from here, again, I'll pull this up tight. I'll give it a twist. I'll come in with some sharp scissors, give myself a little trim. Then I'll go ahead and start my whip finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll throw 2 on there for good measure. Now we're not done with the fly. I'm going to take a little bit of a dubbing brush here. There's one crazy guard hair going out there. I don't want that one. Let's trim him out. Grab my dubbing brush and I'm going to pull from the sides first. So I don't really want too much down in here, as I already have it's built into the rabbit, but I do want some legs coming out. So I'll start from the sides and I'll pull some out. I try not to bump into that turkey too much. But I'll just go from the bottom to the sides here, pulling some of those fibers out, making it nice and buggy. Then I'll finish everything off with a little shot of head cement. And this fly is ready to fish. I will sink down into that knot and you won't have a problem with it coming undone. So there you go, gold ribbed, my little version of a gold ribbed hare's ear. Twist some up. Let me know how you do.